Technical Writing for Inspectors, Module 12, Visual Design. Gary A. Pace, PE, CWI, Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com. Learning objectives. We're going to talk about good design enhancing usability, 6 basic elements of design. Then we're going to talk about margins, fonts, font size, spacing, length, headers, and footers. Good design enhances usability. So what's that mean? It means we want to make a document that doesn't look like a complete disaster, that makes sense, and then our helps the readers understand the information we're trying to get to them. And this is going to help the reader locate information quickly. If we have everything designed, how to, so that the reader can find the information and we've got it laid out in order. And it's also going to help the reader find, important content in your document, your report. So what we're going to talk about is good design and how it helps usability by the. So the basic elements we're going to be talking about on our document are, the text. This is the paragraph and the sentences. This is where our information is going to be. We're going to have headings and titles. This is going to be our labels for the different sections of our document for our paragraphs and sentences. Graphics, we're going to have some graphics sometimes, which is going to be drawings, tables, photographs, and then the captions that go with them. Then we're going to have some blank areas, which are important, because we don't just want to have wall-to-wall words. We want to have a little spacing in there, sometimes for the reader to make comments, or maybe there's some other, reason to have some white space in there. Headers and footers. This is where we're going to put our page titles and numbers, and this is going to be the top and the bottom of each page in a multi-page document. And then what kind of paper are we going to use? And we're not going to get too crazy into this. You're grown-ups, you can figure that out. But I'm an 8.5 by 11 guy, and every now and then I'll throw in a 11 by 17 if I got to put a big drawing or something in there, but it's not too crazy. So with document formatting, with the margins, just set up your Word document. You want 1-inch margins on all sides. If we're going to bind it, we'll use 2 inches, but we're not probably going to do that. Just use 1-inch margins. That means that you come in 1 inch from the side of the paper, and that's where your words are going to start and finish. So we don't justify, we'll justify our left margin only. So this will, if we get too crazy with this, you can get weird spacing. So with formatting, with the fonts, we don't get crazy with the fonts. Don't do this in some kind of weird old German curly Q font. For headings, the general consensus is you want to use Calibri, Arial, Times Roman, and Courier. And for the body text, you want to use Arial, Times Roman, and Courier. And there's some other stuff in there too, but these are some good starting points. But the bottom line is just don't get nutty with it. Don't go out completely off the rails and get some, far outlandish font that's really going to give your readers problems or make you look like you don't know what you're doing because you're putting out a business or a technical document with a really strange font. So for the document formatting on the font size, we want to go with headings. The headings, you usually go 12 to 20 point font, and the body text is 11 to 12. With the headings, you can sometimes underline them or not underline them. Depends on what I'm doing. I try to underline them, but you could go a couple of different directions there. Just as long as you're consistent and it looks professional. So with spacing, for most letters, memos, and emails, we use single spacing. If you're going to use So for other documents, sometimes you're going to use 1.5 or double spacing if there's going to be comments. So just play it by, be consistent. Don't have different paragraphs. One paragraph single space and then one's double and then back to single. Unless you really point out that to the reader that, hey, I want some comments in here on that spacing. But, you know, uh, be consistent on the spacing. Pick one that works for you. I usually go single spacing or maybe 1.5. I don't do much double spacing when I write a technical document. So on the length, paragraphs, for the most part, you don't want to have more than 10 lines. If you can't wrap it up in 10 or 15 lines, and you're probably getting too long. Uh, and it just makes it a little more difficult to read or to put across a specific idea if you get too long-winded. So don't get crazy with long paragraphs. Keep them kind of short and to the point. With sentences, don't make 50 word long sentences. 15 to 20 words in a sentence. You should be able to transfer the information to your reader for that sentence in 15 or 20 words. You don't want them to be too short like you're a third grader writing them. I went to the store. You probably want to include a little more information than you could contain in 6 or 8 words. You don't want really long sentences, but you don't want short, choppy sentences either. So when we talk about a header, we're talking it's the text at the top of the page. And a header is used for the document information, such as the name of the document or the chapter or the heading. A footer, you can see I've got outlined here at the bottom. It's at the foot or the bottom of the page. And here we're going to put in information, things like page numbers, the date we made the document, maybe a revision number, the company name, maybe a phone number. Sometimes I'll put my information in there when I write a report. So if the person wants to get back to me, it's right there. Gary Pace, blah, blah, blah. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. And it makes it significantly easier for them to contact you. So when we're talking about headers and footers, when we make the footer, you don't want them to be a super obtrusive. You don't want it with a really big font so it takes up, a third of the page. And I know I'm being excessive or, kind of getting out of control and explaining that, but you just want the information to be there and you kind of want it to be nondescript so that if the reader looks for it, it's there, but it doesn't really catch their eye. So, a font size of about 9 or 10 is probably going to do you good. Page numbers you can throw in. If you're going to put page numbers down there in the footer, it can have a little bigger font than the 9 or 10, depending on what you got going. A document title should only have a little larger than 10 points. You shouldn't get too crazy with that. And if you're going to put a header on the document, don't get crazy with the document title if it's going to appear on every page. It should just be a little piece of text up there that says what the document title or maybe even the chapter is. But you don't have to put it in really huge font if it's going to be on every page. You want it to be just a small, unobtrusive piece of information in a small text size. That's all you're doing. We're not looking for something that's overpowering and grabs the reader's attention. So when we have headings and titles, these are going to be labels for sections of our document. So the headings, you want to make sure that they're slightly larger than the font size in the text in the paragraph. So if we have 11 or 12 for a font size in the paragraphs, maybe you go 14 for the header size. And I bold them sometimes. I'll put them in bold or I'll underline them. But whatever you decide to do, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. I've seen them all kinds of different ways. I just make them consistent. Just make sure that whatever you're doing is consistent across the board. So if you put a heading in there, if you got a heading in there and you make it slightly larger and you bold it and underline it, well, make sure the next one's the same size, bolded and underlined. Summary, we talked about good design and how it enhances usability. We talked about the 6 basic elements: margins, fonts, font size, spacing, length. And then we talked about headings and titles and headers and footers. Questions. Gary A. Pace, PE, CWI, Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com. Got any questions or comments? Contact me and I'll try and see what I can do to help you.